This is the Divine Comedy of Dante Alighieri, published by the Heritage Press in 1944. Of course, this is a reprint of the limited editions club version, so it might not have actually been published in 1944. That's just what the copyright date says. So let's have a look at the book here. As you can see, it comes in this black slipcase, so we'll have a look at this first. And this is a very standard Heritage Press slipcase, very cheaply made, thin cardboard. You can see it's not very sturdy at all, and it already has lots of signs of wear. Of course, it is like, what, 60, 80 years old, so that's to be expected. It's actually pretty nice for being that old, but it still is just a cheap piece of cardboard, so it won't protect the book as well as better slipcases would. Nonetheless, it's still better than nothing. You can see it's just plain inside, kind of flimsy. Nothing much to it though. As for the book itself, we have this beautiful red and black cloth covering the boards with a pattern stamped in. And this is a pretty nice book cloth. It has a nice rough feel to it, very tactile in the hands. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels like what you would imagine nice book cloth would feel like. As you can see on the spine here, we have quite a lot of fading. It's supposed to be the same color as the covers, but it has faded into this burnt orange, which I still think is a pretty nice color on its own. And you can see we have the title label here, The Divine Comedy, Dante Alighieri, and then William Blake, who is the illustrator of this edition. And then the back cover is the same. On the top, we do have this black stained top edge with a little bit of sun fading near the spine. And the rest of the page edges are trimmed. And we do have this little red and yellow headband, which looks pretty nice. Moving to the inside of the book, we have the sand glass that comes with all of the Heritage Press publications. I'm not going to go over that. It's basically just a little newsletter. And then we have these end papers here, and I'm not too sure exactly what they are, but this one says The Circle of the Lustful, so that makes sense. That's like Canto 5, 6 maybe, engraving by William Blake. No, Canto 3, Canto 4, I can't remember. This is one of his illustrations though. At the very back of the book, it's the exact same one, and they are pretty nice looking, although I gotta say they aren't holding the book together too well. I don't know whether that's just the age, but this book is very wiggly. You can see the covers are able to wiggle quite a lot. So this book isn't constructed the best. You can see the spine is also very flimsy. It's not an actual hard, rounded spine. It's just a piece of cloth flapping over the back of the text block there, and the covers show that flimsiness. Here we have the title page and the frontispiece, which is another William Blake illustration, of course. And this translation is by Melville Best Anderson, which is one of the worse ones. It's not that good. It's still better than Henry Francis Carey, but it's probably a bottom tier translation, so it's definitely not good. It's not modern at all, but it's not nice to read in the Victorian way like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's translation is, so I would definitely try to avoid this translation if I were you. You can see Heritage Press, New York. And this edition is copyright 1944. Once again, I don't know if that was the original copyright date of the limited editions club version, so this may have been printed later because that does seem quite early, but that might be the accurate print date. I'm not too sure. And one thing I just noticed is that the end papers are not glued on very well. They're kind of haphazardly just slapped on there and glued over the edge of the board. You can see it's uneven. We have bigger margin there, so a little bit of a quality control issue that I noticed. We have an introduction here. And then, of course, table of contents with all of our cantos. Yes. And we have Purgatorio and Paradiso. It's not just Inferno in here. And then a list of the illustrations. That's what I thought the table of contents was at first. So there are 32 of them in this book. Now, I must admit the printing of this is pretty nice and big. It's definitely very easy to read, much better than most other books you would buy. And that does make sense because it's such a huge book. It's almost a foot tall, I would say. So it makes sense that it has this nice, big, easy to read font style. Of course, the translation's not the best, so make of that what you will. Very nice margins and formatting overall, though. This is just printed offset like all Heritage Press books, unlike the limited edition club versions, which are all printed letterpress. Here's one of those illustrations. And I'm not going to look at all of them, but I'll look at a few. Here is another. I don't like how it's printed sideways. You kind of have to turn the book sideways to actually look at it. There's probably quite a few like that. Yeah, this one as well. And this one. Actually, are they all printed like that? No, some of them are printed the normal way, but yeah, quite a few of them are printed landscape style, which is not the most appealing. And the colors are definitely not that good either. They're very washed out. You know, it has this weird brown overtone to the whole thing that just doesn't look great on the eyes. The actual art is okay. You know, there's definitely better illustrations out there, especially for this book. The Gustave Doré ones are definitely the best by far. A couple of them, I guess, are in gray, which is kind of odd. Oh, because we've switched to Purgatorio, so that makes sense. The Inferno ones have this red overtone because they're in hell. Purgatorio has this gray. If I can get back to it. Here we go. Yes, Purgatorio is gray because it is purgatory. And then I'm guessing Paradiso will be blue. Or green, but probably, yep, it has a very faint, it's much closer to a gray, but it definitely has a faint blue mask almost. And I gotta say, I'm not a fan of that, even though it does, you know, make sense. It's thematic, but still not a big fan of that in the slightest. It just makes them look very washed out and, you know, not well reproduced. And then we have these extensive notes at the back. I do prefer when they're included as footnotes at the bottom of each page, but you know, it's fine to have them all at the back. You can still look at them pretty easily, all sorted by canto. Very extensive too, explaining lots of the allusions in the book. And that's all for this book. Of course, same end papers at the back. So, you know, it's an okay edition. You can get these for about $20, I would say, on eBay, maybe 25. And condition like this with the sun fading, maybe even less than that, like 15. So, you know, it's okay for the price, but if I'm being honest, there are better editions out there. If you go with the Franklin Library, you can get John Ciardi as the translator, who is really good, with Gustave Doré as the illustrator, who is probably the best. And then there's many other editions. And if you are reading this for the first time, I would highly recommend against this one because it's definitely a much more difficult translation to actually read. So overall, I would probably recommend against getting this edition unless you just, you know, collector's sake, or you don't have the translation, or you really like the way it looks, or if you are never going to read it and it's just going to look pretty on the shelf. But even then, there's probably prettier editions out there. So that's all for this book, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.